Welcome to The Kingdom, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics and a land defended by Sir Ross's Knights. Now here's your host, Rocco Geppi.
Hello, Knights Nation, and welcome to The Kingdom podcast. I'm your host, Rocco Geppi, and this week we have our next installment of Once a Night, Always a Night, as I sat down with former Knights men's soccer student athlete Colby Fell. This is a three-part interview, and I'll check back in at each part to break down and summarize that portion of the interview. Right now, let's get to part one. Again, my interview with former men's soccer student athlete Colby Fell. Hello, Rocco Geppi here with another edition of Once a Night, Always a Night, and today I'm with former men's soccer student athlete Colby Fell. Colby, welcome to the program.
I appreciate you, Rocco. Thanks for having me on today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So what are you up to now? What's going on with Colby Fell?
Yeah, well, so currently I'm back in Salisbury, Maryland, where I formerly grew up for the majority of my life. I'm currently a master's student pursuing my master's in Applied Health and Physiology with a concentration in strength and conditioning, as well as getting to work with the men's soccer program at Salisbury, as well as a graduate assistant, where I kind of get to blend my passion for the game as well as what I learn in the academic side of things, and I get to blend those two things in to make the experience for the student athlete at Salisbury hopefully a little bit better.
That's really cool. Talk a little bit about more about that degree, Applied Health Physiology. What do you hope to do after you have obtained your master's degree with that?
Yeah, so my goal after attaining this degree is to stay in the sport of soccer. I really have enjoyed the physical preparation of the side, whereas when I was a little younger, I thought I would enjoy more of the rehab aspect of the game. Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of people in my past, including family, friends, and just people I've met through this degree program that has really opened up my eyes to what I could end up doing as a career for the rest of my life. Obviously, soccer, being a part of the men's program at Essex and further on in Salisbury, it's something that I'm obviously pretty pumped and ecstatic about, and something I want to stay. I want to stay in the game for as long as I can, and further help athletes just be better on the field, and just again make their experience as great as it can be.
Well, that's great, and I think it's like that for a lot of athletes. You always want to stay involved. You never want to think that the time for you to exit the arena is coming. But if you can find something to keep you active in the sport that you love, there's probably nothing better.
That's I haven't found the reason why I wouldn't do it just yet.
That's great. Good luck, and hope everything goes well with the graduate degree. Coming out of high school, you went to high school, Bel Air, Maryland, mm-hmm. Which is literally right down the street from another Region 20 community college. So why did you choose CCBC Essex?
A good question. So coming out of high school, and during high school, I played club in and around the Baltimore area. As that search was occurring, I was left with not a lot of answers of what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. Mm-hmm. So I had a pretty broad understanding. All I know is I wanted to obviously have the experience, not only as an athlete, but academically and socially and so forth.
Right.
So coming out of high school or finishing up my high school career, I was speaking with a lot of teammates through club, through high school, and there was a common theme. And the majority of those players I've been playing with for 5, 6, 7 years were one by one committing to CCBC Essex. So, what does any other 17 or 18-year-old kid who all he wants to do is hang out with his friends and play soccer do? He followed suit. So that was I would probably say the majority of the reason why I went to CCBC Essex was to hang out with my friends, to be honest, and play soccer and see what opportunities could come about it.
It seemed like it all worked out.
I would say so. I would say so.
When you were here, you played as a back, but in your sophomore year, first as a freshman, as a back, 2 goals and an assist, which I think anytime, somebody playing in that role can get any between the pipes is a good year.
Sure.
Sophomore year, you double your assists, but you end up with 4 times as many goals as you did as a freshman. You score 8 goals as a sophomore. What was the reason for that jump? Was it schematic? Was it, I know a lot of the games against some inferior opponents, Coach Fiedler likes to move the pieces around. So what was it that allowed you to score 8 goals that year?
Rocco, I'll be completely honest with you. Coming into CCBC, I had never played a day in defense in my life. So the transition, my first year going, I was always a forward. I was always a forward or an attacking midfielder. Unfortunately, part of my game, it was never fast. I'm not, a very quick or fast player, but I do have a little bit of size to me, which worked to my benefit. So, coming into Essex, one day during training, Coach Fiedler approached me and asked me what my thoughts were with moving back deeper into the field, more into a CDM and or center back role. As anyone, I believe, in my position who just all they want to do is play soccer with their friends, I obviously said, sure, let's give it a go. And through a lot of wonderful learning experiences, both on and off the field, and trying to just figure new stuff out. I would say that my first year was just a big year of just trying to manage a new position, just trying to do my best. And luckily I was surrounded by a lot of really, really good, intelligent, athletic soccer players as well, which helped me along the way. One being my buddy, Justin Ellis, taught me a lot about that center back position, and also saved my butt a lot too. So thank you for that. That first year, it was more just, I was getting used to the game from a different position. I was getting used to a higher level, even though, CCBC is a very competitive and a really good program. And you can obviously tell that through the score lines, and you can see that through the records and the wins and losses. But that doesn't mean we're still not playing quality teams. You can't just, it's not a walk in the park. Every day is not a walk in the park. So those experiences my first year definitely made me a whole new changed player. Walking into my second year, a little bit more confidence. I was a bit older. So that certainly helped. And I was more aware of what my capabilities were as a player. So I believe, not only that was I more of a well-rounded player, but now in some of those games where, maybe we need to push for an extra goal or so forth, my former background of being a forward or an attacking player just gave me more opportunity to be on the field for longer and to hopefully make a difference and impact in the game.
With your background, being an attacker, being an attacking midfielder, did that make the transition to center back easier in the aspect of, how the mind is working of those attacking players? And so did that give you a little bit of an insight on how to play that position as well?
Hindsight 2020, probably. I'll be honest, it's funny because, as an attacking player, and we see it at all levels of the game, all the way from the youth, all the way to the top ranks. Some of these guys, you see all these forwards, they get hurt, they get hit, they fall down, and then, they're throwing their hands in the air, they're yelling at the referee, they're getting frustrated, and so forth. Honestly, my favorite part about defending was just not getting hit anymore, and I was the one more instigating the action rather. So I think just understanding where to push those buttons and just be a little bit more physical than the guy I was hopefully one-on-one against I would say is what more gave me the edge, more so than anything else. Because it's human biology. Once something happens that's negative once, he probably doesn't want to do that same thing again. So I just used the numbers game. If I do something enough, hopefully he's just gonna be frustrated, and and I did my part to help our team become a little bit more successful than the other team.
You're one of those numbers guys bringing analytics into sports, aren't you?
I try. Hey, it's part of my profession, part of my job.
Hey, listen, we're going to hit a break. Rocco Geppi here talking with Colby Fell, former member of the Knights soccer team on the men's side. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Rocco Geppi with Colby Fell here on the Kingdom Podcast.
Let's talk about college. Times have changed, and I say no to an education at the cost of crippling debt, because paying off student loans for the next 30 years is not in my financial plans.
Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online and see what you can be.
Times have changed, and I will not stay stuck in a job because college has no time for me. I will not let a limited schedule limit me.
Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online and see what you can be.
We are back on the Kingdom Podcast, and that was part one of my interview with Colby Fell, and really good to catch up with him. Again, this is a 3-part interview. We'll get you out to the next part here in just a moment, but Colby talking about why he came to Essex and making the switch. A big portion of that interview, we were discussing how he was a forward and an attacking midfielder in high school and his club ball before coming to Essex, and head coach Joe Fiedler asking him to move to the center back position. And Colby talked about how he was able to learn from others that have played that position. And then also, because he had always possessed an attacking mindset, how that helped him in the Knights backfield, so to speak, when contesting other forwards and midfielders in that new role. We're going to take you now over to part 2 of the interview, and we'll be back here on the Kingdom Podcast, Season 2, Episode number 5. Again, this is part 2 of my interview with former men's soccer student athlete Colby Fell. We are back. Thanks for hanging around. Rocco Geppi joined by Colby Fell, former men's soccer student athlete, 2014-2015 seasons. And Colby, before we went to break, we were talking about on the field things while you were here in the Kingdom. Let's shift gears just a little bit and tell me a little bit about head coach Joe Fiedler. What was it like playing for him, and what does he do, or how does he make student athletes better?
Yeah, so my first experience with Coach Fiedler was actually on my recruiting visit in the winter of my senior year of high school, which I believe was in 2013 or 14, the winter of 2013, maybe going into the winter of 2014. I met with him and the assistant at the time, and a high school kid, excited, nervous, walking around campus. I could just tell that Coach Fiedler was just a genuine guy who cares. And for me, that's a pretty important characteristic. Someone who cares about you, not only wants you to do well on the field, but also academically, as well as just as a human being.
Yeah.
So that was something that drew me in pretty quickly. Part of any visit, but part of his visit, I think it's very easy to talk about all the success that the program has had in the past. Yes, he obviously mentioned that because that's always going to be a selling point to any recruit.
Sure.
But he spent a good amount of time on, post my experience. So, what opportunities may come out of, nothing's guaranteed. It's all obviously on the student athlete to make the right decisions to move forward and do what they really want to do. But he spent a lot of time on our visit talking about the academics and talking about the importance of academics and the importance of just being a good person on campus, socially making good decisions, then doing the good stuff on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And majority of the time, if you take care of the stuff academically and athletically, you will likely have an opportunity to move forward. So that excited me because obviously, you know, as an 18-year-old kid, you don't know what's going to look ahead of you, but all of a sudden your imagination starts going off and you start thinking about all these cool places, all these cool things you get to do.
Yeah.
But Coach Feeds on the field knows how to push those buttons to get the best out of you. So, you know, it's in my experience, it can be really challenging to get 25 plus people all on the same board.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Feeds has done that consecutively over the last few years. For me personally, he learned pretty quickly of what buttons to press on me, so that, you know, hey, if I just wasn't playing the standard, you know, or if I just wasn't, for whatever reason, you know, I wasn't motivated on the day or bringing the best out of myself on the day, he knew what to say, how to bring it out of me. Even though maybe at the time I didn't see it that way, he definitely brought the best out of me, and I think he can do that in a variety of different ways for a lot of different players as well.
You know, one of the things I've always admired about Coach Fiedler is that he's very realistic, and
Yes.
and he's not gonna blow smoke where smoke ought not be blown. And in that, you know, at any given time, he has a roster of 25 guys, and he can turn around and start any 11 guys. And whether you're coming in from a prestigious regional program in high school or a nationally, you know, recognizable program, you got to work, because you could come in as a 4-time all conference, all division, you know, MAI, like you could have all the credentials, but if you don't put the work in, you're not going to play. And I think that says a lot about the teams, but even more about the character of the teams that he puts together. Yeah.
There's been a lot of really, really good players that have come before me, even when I was there and after me. Fortunately, you know, and I can't say I was the best one on the field, and because that is not true. But, you know, whatever Coach Fiedler did to motivate me to believe that I was, you know, the best player on the field, or whatever he did to, you know, be a quality head coach, he did it really well. And again, there's a lot of different personalities that can go onto a soccer team, especially when players come from those programs that are higher of quality. And, you know, you're gonna make some people upset because, you know, their egos get hurt. But again, he's realistic. He'll talk to you. You know, he'll give you the tools of what to do to become a more productive member of the team, on and off the field. So I think that's, you know, that speaks to his character and his leadership qualities of a coach that a lot of people can't say they have, I don't think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The team last year, Colby, they finished the season 8th straight Region 20 Division 1 tournament champions. You were a part of numbers 3 and 4 in that stretch. How do you think Coach Fiedler is able to put together such not only regionally competitive, but, you know, once you start winning 4, 5, 6 regional titles in a row, you know, that's dominance. How does he put together such regionally dominant teams?
Yeah, I think it's from the reputation and the culture that's been built through the program over the last 8, and then even way further beyond that. I still hear stories about, you know, way before my time as a player, about a very similar, you know, achievement of excellence, quite honestly. But I think the culture that has been built, and the reputation that has been brought on, intrigues a lot of players, especially local players that have a lot of good quality characteristics and attributes to a team. Recruiting, I mean, if you don't have consistent good recruiting, you're not going to have a consistent quality program like Essex has made. I think word of mouth also. I think a lot of these, Essex as a student athlete in the JUCO league, you have 2 years to play.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you have, and then you move on. In high school and college, right, or high school and club rather, you have players who are younger than you, but you all practice, depending on the club teams that you're on or the high schools that you're on, you all practice at the same field or the same complex within the same similar nights. And, I remember as a young club player, a 12-year-old kid looking at a 16-year-old kid, I'm thinking this kid is incredible. And whatever he does, I'm going to say, man, I still have players that pop up in my head who I think were incredible players when I was a 12-year-old and they were a 16-year-old.
Right.
And hearing that, player X, Y, and Z went to CCBC, I should do that, type of deal. So I think there's a lot into it because it's not easy recruiting every single year for a 2-year school, for a 2-year program where the turnover rate is so high.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a combination of quality coaching, the culture that has been developed, and then the word of mouth and the quality of players that just come in and stay connected with the roots of Baltimore.
That's really good stuff right there. And that's a great insight because I think sometimes people on the outside, there's this whole thing for the last couple of years that's been going around on Twitter and other social media networks with the hashtag and the CC stigma. And a lot of people don't understand the arena of junior college and what it means to go to a community college and how well it prepares you. And it's good to see the other side of it too, because, as a whole, athletics is very large, but our student population is mainly non-athletes. So to see both sides of it and that athletically it's important, but you have to put the academics together, I think tells people out there a lot. And I appreciate that insight. Listen, we're going to hit one more quick break here. We'll finish things up on the other side. This is only going to be a 15-second break. Colby, we appreciate your time, and we'll be back for the final segment. Rocco Geppi alongside Colby Fell, former men's soccer student athlete here at Essex. You're listening to the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics.
Let's talk about college. Times have changed, and I say no to an education at the cost of crippling debt, because paying off student loans for the next 30 years is not in my financial plans.
Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online and see what you can be.
All right, that was part 2 of my interview with Colby Fell, former student athlete for men's soccer. And in that part, you heard Colby giving his insights on what it was like to play for head coach Joe Fiedler. Joe Fiedler is always going to get the most out of his student athletes in a way that he knows what they are capable of providing. And then the regional dominance, Colby and I talking about how Joe Fiedler has been able to construct such strong teams, 8 straight Region 20 championships. This is just an unbelievable run by the team that unfortunately right now has been put on pause due to COVID. And we're hopeful to get in some spring soccer to defend that title. Of course, this year the Knights will be defending it in a slightly different way as they move from Division I to the newly created Division II for men's soccer. Right now, we'll get you back over to the final part of this interview. Again, Rocco Geppi here on the Kingdom Podcast, and this is the final part of my interview with Colby Fell. We are back. Rocco Geppi alongside Colby Fell, former men's soccer student athlete, and this is the final part of our interview in another edition of Once a Night, Always a Night. Colby, we were talking off air about this a little bit, but you come in as a freshman, and the team goes to its second national tournament appearance in a row. This time in Yavapai, Arizona. In 2015, you guys barely miss out on going to nationals. There were no at-large bids at that time, losing a tough one, 2-1 to Schoolcraft in the district championship game. First of all, what was the experience like going to a national tournament? And tell me the difference between those two teams.
Yeah, so in 2014, my freshman year, we made it to Prescott, Arizona. I could tell you, much like any other naive 17, 18, 19-year-old, when you win so many games straight in a row, your head gets a little big. I can honestly say that I was feeling pretty darn good about myself walking into that national tournament and the group play of that tournament. There's so Prescott, Arizona, never been to Arizona ever in my life. We fly in. We have some flight difficulties where we get diverted a little bit. And we finally make it to Arizona, and that night, after flying from Baltimore, from the East Coast, flying all the way across to California and then back to Arizona, getting on a bus and driving up to north from Phoenix, Arizona to Prescott, which is about, I believe, a 4-hour ride or so. That night, we found ourselves with a ball at our feet in a parking lot. So awesome experience, right from the get. Very tired and a very different experience than the comfort of being at home. So being away was definitely a challenge in itself. Yeah. Right from the get.
It sounds like it.
Walking into game one, again, feeling pretty darn good about myself. Maybe a little tired, but feeling pretty good about myself. I will never forget a kid out of Tyler, Texas, was I believe our first game. Embarrassed me in front of about 7 other JUCO teams who were in front of or in the corner watching our game under the lights at Prescott College. And from that point on, I realized, we're not going to walk around like we did in Maryland JUCO here. So going into the national tournament was a big wake-up call. I'm a very, I still say this today to some of my old teammates, to some new teammates that I gain every single day here in Salisbury. Some of the best teams I ever played with were at this national tournament. Pima College, Tyler, Texas, and there was one more, which was I believe it was I can't remember off the top of my head. It knocks you down a little bit once you realize that you're playing against teams who all had the same, very similar or same success that you did when you were back at home.
Yeah, it's a different atmosphere. It's a different animal out there, and I think when once you've experienced it, it lends to a better experience. But I definitely feel that and that whole trip getting out there. I remember because I had just started my run. I was contractual before I was full-time in January of 2015. Okay. And the funny thing is probably about 3 weeks before you guys left, Bob Opperly, who was the acting athletic director at the time, he came to me and was like, "Hey, you want to go to Arizona with the team? We need an extra person to go," and this, that, and the other. And I had some stuff going on in my life that unfortunately I couldn't go. And then I heard about the travels and what you guys had to go through. And I said, "Oh, I'm kind of glad I didn't have to go through that."
Yeah, sure.
I couldn't imagine going through that. And then it's like whatever time, Arizona time, so you're not only are you still on East Coast time, but then you're like, all right, let's hit this parking lot and let's get into practice.
Yeah, Rocco, I'll tell you what though. We went 0-3 in that 2014 national tournament, scoring more goals than I think conceding more goals than I think we let in all year, but it was still one of the best experiences ever.
That's great.
Playing against some of those teams and just being in an atmosphere that, quite frankly, I know for a fact that myself have never been in before. And I could probably speak to at least another handful or 2 guys on the team at the time who were not in that, who have never been put in an experience like that before. So just being able to be put in an environment as competitive, just really as a competitive, and the atmosphere and the environment was as fun as it was. It was something that I'll remember for a very, very, very long time.
And I've heard the Grand Canyon stories, and
oh yeah,
I not that they're not suitable for a podcast, but they would probably take us from a G rating to at least a PG-13 rating.
This podcast would turn into a 4-hour podcast with all the stories I've got. Good times. Good times.
When you were on the field,
Mhm.
I think sometimes, especially with soccer in this country, there is a huge soccer contingency here in the U.S., but as a mainstream sport, soccer is still working to be that in the United States. So talk to me about something in your game that if the layperson were to look at a box score, they're not going to see it in the box score, but if they're watching the game, it's so important and it's crucial to the success of the team.
Good question, Rocco. I would have to say it's the communication aspect of the game. Being dropped back into the back line and being a little uncomfortable made me see a lot of different things in a lot of different ways, and made me learn not only about the game, but also about life and so forth. But when you start seeing these things before someone else does, and then you start communicating these things verbally and non-verbally, and putting the pieces around you in a better position, makes the game a lot easier for someone who's as big and slow as I am. And when that happens, right, when you have to pretty much do less physically, less running, less tackles for maybe, because you're simply using your voice and putting the pieces of the puzzle in better positions, it's fun. And that's what it's all about, right? The game should be fun, even when the game feels like it's not fun. At the end of the day, right, the first question I always ask myself after every game, hey, did I have fun? What's something I did really, really good at, right? Might have been communication, might have been, hey, I had one really cool tackle. And what's something I can improve on? And I can't speak for everyone, but for myself, there's got to be an enjoyment factor. And I probably learned that a little bit later on, but unknowingly to myself, that's a little process I went through which led to just me being, what I would can say is a successful time at CCBC. So just communicating, on the ball, off the ball. If you're not on the 11 on the field, right, you can still communicate off the field. You can still share ideas, to your teammates, to coaches, because we're all there for the same reason. Yeah. And it's easy to say. It's easy to say when you have a winning record, to say you had fun doing all those things. But there's got to be an enjoyment factor that definitely does not show up on any box score that I'm aware of. Because if that was, I'd be an All-American because I enjoyed it so much.
And I think that's an aspect of any sport that kind of gets downplayed. You look at whatever sport. I don't care what the sport is. I know nothing about cricket and rugby, but I guarantee you it's – what's that?
I'm right there with you, man.
I guarantee you communication is a huge part of those sports too, and it's something that gets overlooked. But when you start to look at the success, you could definitely break out that, communication led to the success of, this team or that team, this sport, that sport. So that's a great insight, and that I think one that a lot of people tend to forget about.
I would say so.
So you put your 2 years in the kingdom, and you make the decision you're going to go back to your roots. You're going to head back to the Eastern Shore of Maryland and go to Salisbury University. Take us through that transition and tell us, how your time here at Essex prepared you for the NCAA level.
Yeah, so to kind of break up the stigma, first off, there's not much of a difference between the JUCO level of athletics, at least in my experience, and the NCAA. The quality in the programs and the players that you play are very similar. And there's definitely going to be those players who are better and have a opportunity to even play at an even higher level, if they so wish. Then you also have those players who are there just, less competitive reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, the competitive nature and the games that Coach Fiedler was able to schedule prepared me, physically, emotionally, and technically and tactically, to transition over to Salisbury pretty, I won't say easily, because it was not easy, but to have a little bit more success. So coming out of 2 years of CCBC, where I was where I logged in a lot of minutes, fortunate minutes that I was able to get, stepping into Salisbury, I was a lot more comfortable on the field and able to step into a role a little bit more swiftly and quickly there as well. So for a lot of players, it is when they get to college, that first season or two is an alarm phase, is a wake up call for a lot of these kids, right? The play is a little bit quicker. The players you play are a little bit older, a little bit more physical, a little bit more mature, emotionally, especially. And so, a lot of young players often don't see as many minutes as they probably feel they deserve, or think they will get when they walk into a program. So I would say that being able to step into Essex, doing what I can to help not only myself for selfish reasons, but also the team, and make myself a more well-rounded player, that made my transition over to Salisbury to become a better teammate and a better individual, both on and off the field. A very quick, swift, and positive transition. When I came into Salisbury, I was coming into a team that the year previous had won a conference championship and ended up making it into the NCAA tournament. And they only lost maybe a handful or less players from the year previous. So I knew walking in was not to be an easy task. So I'm very thankful for the opportunities that I gathered and gained from Essex to allow me to have the opportunity to step into Salisbury.
That's really great. It's kind of something that we've seen year in and year out, is the preparation of the coaches, that not only Coach Fiedler, but the assistants that he puts together. Always having always the forward thinking, not just let's win this year, but always thinking about the future of his student athletes, and that's great to hear. Colby, we're going to get you one more question here, and then we're going to let you go. But give me your top 3 moments from your time here in the Kingdom.
Yeah, top 3 moments. My first one, the first thing that always comes to my head again is got to be that national tournament in Arizona, and just the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. Those were, again, I can't speak to the experience that I gained there. That's something that a lot of people want and look to achieve, and many fall short. So that's definitely, that whole experience from top to bottom, from start to finish, was definitely in there, including all those Grand Canyon stories. I would say my second one would be a game against Monroe College out of New York, and we were playing them at home. And I believe the final score was 4-3. And it was an absolute battle between the two teams. Monroe is a quality program who has a long-lasting legacy of being a very high-achieving program. And I believe they won the junior college tournament in the recent years, if I'm not mistaken. And the pure athleticism, the technical ability, the tactical aspect of the game, the physical aspect of the game, emotional aspect, that one game and games previous that we played against them brought is something that is a wonderful, wonderful memory. That, you don't get games like that bring out that much emotion and passion, and that was so demanding. You don't get that every day.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up winning that game 4-3. I believe they actually had a really late red card in like the 60th or 70th minute, and where they actually had momentum up until that point, and then they crashed once that one bad thing happened. That you could tell everything, the energy, the momentum flipped. And I believe we were either tied or down, and then we clawed back, and then within like the first minute or two of overtime, one of my best friends, Guillermo, slotted one across the box, hit the back post, which I still today think was a cross, but he says it's a shot, and trickles in. That was one of those games that just everything was laid out, where a lot of people can say, "Oh, this is too hard," and everything was laid out on the field, and we were fortunately rewarded with the opportunity with the W on that day. And I'd say the third one is more generic. I won't say it's one moment or one day, but I talked about earlier the friendships. The reason I came to CCBC was because that's where most of my friends were, and I just wanted to play soccer with my friends. Those that never changed. That we only got closer together as we got older through the experience at Essex. So all the stories that Rocco, maybe once we pop off this podcast here, I'd love to share a couple. But just the overall experience I had, again, academically, athletically, socially, will be an experience and a memory that I will always cherish and always have a good time, sharing with in the future, and hopefully some future CCBC Essex nights.
That's awesome, Colby. I appreciate the insights. Ladies and gentlemen, Colby Fell, former CCBC Essex men's soccer student athlete, 2014-2015. And for those of you wondering, in his time here, the teams Colby was on, 33-11, 75% of the games they were able to put in the win column.
Nice.
Colby, I appreciate everything. Again, thanks for joining us here today. And hopefully we get you back on sometime in the future.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Rocco. Appreciate you.
You're absolutely welcome. That's it for my interview with Colby Fell. We're going to send things back to the podcast. You're listening to the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics. We are back, and that was part 3 of 3, my interview with former Knights men's soccer student athlete Colby Fell. And in that third part, Colby talking about his 2 great years, reminiscing about playing in the NJCAA National Tournament, where they had a lot of fun out there despite the 2 losses. Some fun over at the national parks, and just really taking in the experience out in Arizona. Colby also talked about important skills and strategies that don't show up in the box score, and things that he did, the intangibles, so to speak, on the field. And then from the kingdom to the shore, talking about how he's been able to transition from CCBC Essex to Salisbury University, ended a really good playing career there with Salisbury, and now is a grad assistant coach on the team. And of course, giving his top 3 moments at CCBC Essex. We do appreciate Colby joining the show. And if you missed any of that interview, please be sure to rewind. We know we start these videos off on a premiere, but at the end, you can then go to the video and pick it up on demand at any portion of the show. We appreciate you sticking around. Again, this was season 2, episode number 5. Folks, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at CCBC Essex Sports is the handle. Please make sure to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Just keyword search CCBC Essex Athletics. That is where you're going to find all of these videos from the Kingdom Podcast. And of course, we are updating our website every day at ccbcessexknights.com. Make sure to tune in, and we appreciate you doing so. Next week, a special early release date. We're going to drop episode number 6 on Tuesday, November 24th, because it's turkey time. Thanksgiving coming up very quickly this year, it seems like. Nice thanks to Colby Fell for being on the show, and we appreciate you as well. I'm Rocco Geppi. Thank you for joining us on Season 2, Episode number 5 of the Kingdom Podcast. So long.